to today's episode of the Beyond Enough podcast. And I am incredibly excited to have another guest with me today, the gorgeous Becky. Wait till you find out what she does. Oh my goodness. I cannot wait to share this conversation with you all. But first of all, good afternoon, I should say, Becky. I was really saying good morning.
Good afternoon.
You're so
Thanks for having
welcome.
me.
So, would you like to quickly introduce yourself and what it is that you're currently bringing into the world? And then we can dive into the stories behind that.
Okay. Yeah, I'm Becky Purchas and I am the declutter coach behind White Space. So yeah, I help people to declutter their homes, to get super organized. I'm like Bristol's answer to Stacey Solomon. And yeah, I provide mindset coaching as well. So that's kind of the two services I provide, but they also kind of crossover. So yeah, we do a bit of mindset coaching whilst decluttering sometimes. So
I can
yeah,
imagine. Yeah, I
it's a
can only
variety.
imagine. I think it's one of those things where some people really struggle. Some people really struggle. And I think, especially mamas, busy mamas, you can tell me, of course, from your point of view, your expertise, but sometimes it's just really hard to keep on top of everything. And one of the things, like, I know I'm guilty of it myself, is just letting things in the house pile up. Like, it just happens. It just gets on top of you. And I'm guessing that you have some really helpful
Yeah.
tips for us all of like decluttering, keeping on top of things and trying to, I guess, make it a bit more streamlined and take away that overwhelm. I guess that's again a mindset piece. You can elaborate a little bit, but I'm guessing
Mm,
it's quite a lot of it is to do with mindset and not letting it become so overwhelming and manage it in a much more effective way.
yeah. So you're so right. It is often busy families and busy parents, but obviously not just those people, but I know what it's like as a busy mum to know, children are constantly growing out of clothes, and then you've got like the churn of their clothes, the churn of the toys, of everything that they're into, as well as like all of your grown-up stuff and the fact you use your house. So I think the number one thing I would say to anybody is don't worry about comparing your home to or comparing yourself in any way to anybody else. And what you see on Instagram or Pinterest is usually staged. It's not real. It doesn't stay like that for very long. So I would just say, just take that pressure off yourself because, homes are to be used and lived in. Yes, there are lots of things we can do to streamline and to make it manageable, but ultimately every household has to work for those people in the house. And so there isn't, a one size fits all. So first of all, take the pressure off. Get rid of that. And then after that, what would I say? I think really is a case of just finding small ways to fit decluttering and organizing into your life because we're so busy. It is not something that will ever be the top priority, but ultimately, if we never do any of it, it will get on top of us, like you said, and it piles up. And then it becomes this massive job where, you feel like you need to dedicate an entire weekend to doing some decluttering when actually if you can get on top of it and then dedicate a little bit here and there regularly, yeah, it's much more manageable. But anyway, there's so much I
I
could talk
know.
about that for
It's so
days.
interesting though. I'd love to know how this came to be. Like, how did you, I'm guessing you didn't just wake up one morning and be like, do you know what? I'm an expert at decluttering. I'm going to coach it. So maybe you did. And that's great too. But I'm assuming there's a little bit of a story behind why this is something that you've decided to dedicate a lot of
Yeah.
time towards helping people with.
Definitely. Well, I had so there's the two things that come together. There's the decluttering and there's the coaching. And even way back when I had my corporate job before I had my little boy Alfie, I had an interest in coaching and I started training back then. So that was always, my pull was towards helping people get unstuck and to try and sort of build confidence and clarity and that kind of thing. So that was where the coaching side originated from. That was the original. And then the decluttering side kind of came about. I'll try and give you the condensed version, but it sort of came about over time through a couple of different events. So one was when my dad passed away, we were decluttering his belongings, and it just got me thinking about what we keep, why we attach value to it. And value is very much in the eye of the beholder. So, things that were falling apart that he'd kept for years were obviously precious to him, but to us, we were like, what's that for? So, and then each of me and my siblings, we would all, find value in other things that he'd left with our own memories and that kind of thing. So it just got me curious really about why we choose to keep certain things. And ultimately, our homes are basically boxes that can only hold so much. So how do we decide what stays and what goes? And I was at a mum and baby group, and I met this lovely lady, and she was telling me how she is a counsellor at a hoarding support charity. And so at the time, it was completely unrelated to my dad, but for some reason, it just really stuck with me that I thought that's so fascinating. I've never met anybody who works in that, in that sort of environment, with overfilled houses, and I was just fascinated. So anyway, the mum and baby group closed down, and then this was like the two things running parallel over time. I remembered that conversation. And so after my dad had died and I'd been sorting out his things, I thought, well, I'm going to get in touch with her and see if I can do some voluntary work. I wasn't sure about what my next step would be in terms of employment, which is another story entirely. And I thought, oh, I'll just go and see what it's like. I'm kind of interested in hoarding disorder, really. I don't have anyone in my family that's got that tendency, but I've always been fascinated by it. And the whole thing about my dad and why he kept what he did, I just thought this is like taking that curiosity and then, well, putting it on steroids, really, finding out why people keep so much stuff. And, so yes, anyway, so I started volunteering with the charity, and they provided training for me. And that's how I started working one-to-one with people. This wasn't really coaching. This was just helping them to declutter and to have some of those trickier conversations. And the waiting list for support was so long. It was like in Bristol, it was like 4 or 5 years to be able to even see anybody. And I just thought, this is horrendous. So I decided to set up an organising business myself. So I don't just purely work in the hoarding niche, but I now help all sorts of busy families, people who are moving house, people who've lost loved ones, all sorts of things. It ultimately comes down to any sort of change that they've been through, and then they're now trying to assess where they are today and how to move forward.
Wow.
Sorry, that's a lot to unpack, isn't it?
That's so fascinating though. Like how there was just all these serendipitous moments that led to that little light bulb of like, wait a minute, I can actually help people. Like I can totally help people do this. It's such I agree. Like it's so fascinating. I don't have anyone I know. Well, maybe, I mean, I don't have been to everyone's house that I know, but as far as I'm aware, I don't know anyone that hoards or has that like compulsive need to hold on to everything and anything. But I can imagine that it is very much entwined with lots of different beliefs and lots of different attachment wounds and lots of different history in a person that makes them live in such an environment as they're losing value in their living space, right? Because there's so much in their homes. I wonder if you could talk to that. What do you think about what those reasons might be that we struggle to let go of material possessions?
Well, there's all sorts of factors that can come into play, such as generational issues, people who have perhaps been through older generations where it's a case of make do and mend and get by, and it might be useful. And so there's the whole mindset of, well, we don't want to waste anything, which of course I am not an advocate for just throwing things away willy-nilly. Obviously I'd like to recycle and donate where possible. There is this, it could be valuable someday, it could be useful someday. There can be, a lot of my clients have OCD or other sort of neurodiversity where they might just be worried about making the wrong decision, and so end up in like procrastinating and like freeze mode. There are issues with, just executive function, decision making, and then actually taking that action. There can be all sorts of things. There could be a trauma that's been related in the past, and now building up possessions provides some kind of comfort. Everyone's so unique and so different that it's difficult to say what, we do this because of this, but it's all just part of the human web we weave throughout our lives, really, and all the different factors that come in. But I think one thing I should have said before I talked about how to get into how I got into decluttering, was that I had actually noticed a massive improvement in my well-being when I decluttered at home. So I would love to say that I'm like a naturally organized, clutter-free person, but it takes effort for me, and I've got everything in place now. I can maintain it. That's fine. And I love the benefits of doing it. But when I first went off from my corporate job onto maternity leave, I'd been such a workaholic and I'd completely lost my identity because everything was about work, work, work. And so when work was no longer there, I was excited to be a mum, but I was also like, what do I do now? I've got no structure in my day. I don't know what I've got this gorgeous new person, but who am I apart from mum? And so I did get into I got into a dip of depression after I had my little boy. And I realized that when I was looking around, the house it wasn't a hoarding level or anything. Like, it was just cluttered where we'd moved in, I'd had my baby and we hadn't got ourselves sorted out. And I realized I had all of these reminders visually around me of my old life in the corporate world. I had the work clothes and, I had, all the books related to what I used to do. And I think it was just really reinforcing this, who am I now? I'm not that. And it was when I made the decision to clear away anything to do with that old life. And I started to feel like an energy shift. I started to dabble with creative activities and things that I just hadn't touched for years and years and years. And then I realized actually I've got a bit of a creative side to me. And then I started to decorate the house and I was doing things that I would never have thought I could do. Like, I didn't even know how to repot a plant when I first had my boy. And then suddenly I was like there doing the gardening and I was landscaping. I was like, who is this person? Where have I come from? I was suddenly dabbling with things that I just hadn't tried before. And sorry, this is a really long-winded answer, but ultimately what it came down to was when I cleared away the things that reminded me of the old identity, there was this new room for me as I am today to come in and for me to like really understand, what do I stand for now? What are my values? What do I want to achieve? What can I offer? And it really improved my whole well-being, and it really lifted me out of that depression in time. And I really feel that it was so much more than just putting out things that I don't no longer needed and going to the charity shop. It was like a physical act of decluttering and organizing, but mentally it lifted a weight. It was incredible. It was like medicine. And so this had happened before my dad had died, and my dad died a few years later. And so I didn't see the connection at all. And I think now, looking back, like you said about these serendipitous events, looking back now, I think the reason I was so fascinated by why my dad had kept certain things was because the process had already started personally for me prior to that.
I mean, wow. Thank you so much for sharing all of that with us. And there's so many themes that I could pick on here to go forward, and the change that happens with motherhood, the loss of identity that comes with motherhood, the loss of identity when you leave a career that you have pinned your whole identity on, and the importance and the magic of your environment, which I think is so underrated. I think it is so underrated how we use our environment. Like you say, it's the same with mindset as it is with physical space. You have to clear out the old in order to welcome in something new. But we struggle. We struggle to let go of things. We struggle to let go of old identities. We struggle to let go of old beliefs, old feelings, all the things that remind us of these things, the things that we surround ourselves with every single day. And so I love that you were able to go, do you know what? That part of my life is done. And I'm going to remove everything that is almost like just sitting there taunting you, pulling you back to that old. And you just wiped the slate clean and said, naturally, I'm going to pot plants. I'm going to be a homemaker. I'm going to, enjoy this season and just try new things and let my creative side out. And I think as well, having the space to do that, like being set up, almost prepared for certain things in life with your environment. Like you were saying earlier, you've got those systems and processes now. It's so much easier to keep on top of things once you've kind of done that groundwork. So I think first I'd love, there's so many themes, but first I'd love I'd love to ask you what that journey being, because there's a lot of women listening to this. I mean, maybe guys too. But a lot of the women listening to this will be female entrepreneurs themselves, and they might still be in a corporate position, or they might have transitioned out just like you. And so I wonder if you can tell us what that's been like, firstly, to go from corporate to then, I guess, starting something yourself and also being a mum?
So I think when I was in my corporate job, like I say, I was a bit of a workaholic, but I think as part of my ADHD, I'm an inattentive diagnosis, but the flip
Yes.
side to that is hyperfocus. And so I do get hyper focused on things I'm interested in. And I was really enjoying my job at the time. Having said that, I was enjoying my job and my actual role day to day, but the environment was very toxic. And so when I left that environment, I've already said that I kind of lost where I was going, who I was, and that kind of thing. But I think for anyone who's already in that environment, I think you need to just dig deep, really, and really take some time to assess what you want from this one life. As far as we know, there's one life, and not everybody is in a position to, draw a line under their job and just suddenly make a change. I could totally get that. And I say suddenly, but my change happened over a couple of years. It wasn't overnight. But I would just say, I think there's a lot of inner work to be done. There's a lot of digging deep about there's sitting with the uncomfortable feelings and the questions you don't really want to ask yourself because you don't want to know the answers. And I think in this day and age when there's so much, distraction and attention spans so short, it can be really uncomfortable to, I don't know, sit and journal or meditate. That doesn't work for some people. It works for me, but not for everyone. But I think anything that can give you time to just really listen to what your intuition is trying to tell you, whether that's on a walk or I don't know if it's while you like swimming or wherever it silences
When
the
you're decluttering.
noise. Just, yeah, when you're folding towels or rolling them. Yeah, I think it's tricky to get. I've forgotten what I was going
No,
to say.
sorry, that was
Sorry, it's
definitely
completely
my
gone.
fault.
Did I answer your question? No, no, not
Yeah,
at
no,
all.
absolutely. I think you're right. I think it really does beg some really deep questions when we're going through any type of change. And all we can really do is make sure we're trying to be as intentional as possible. And like you say, take a moment. Take a moment, take a week, take a month. Really, who's counting? There's been so many times where I've had to just be like, Amy, the world's not going to crumble if you don't put out 7 reels this week. Take a chill pill, and sometimes we just have to remind
Yeah,
ourselves that actually we are in
yeah,
control and we can press pause on certain things while we figure stuff out. And that's okay. It's okay not to have to constantly be on the
yeah.
go and make decisions right away. We get to take time to do that and be more intentional. I love that. And how do you feel? What was your corporate role, just out of interest?
So I was a chief people officer at a tech company. So I was in charge of HR and project management and product management. And it was a very varied, wide reaching role. And on top of that, I was running a project to change the culture at the firm. So yeah, there was a lot going on.
Love that. So you have a history of
Um,
working with people. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I've always been fascinated by what makes people tick. And, I'm not a psychologist or anything, but I've just been curious, and yeah,
Yeah.
people are
We're the
fascinating.
same kind of curious. I love finding out what makes people do certain things, think certain ways. It's so fascinating, genuinely fascinating. I love that. So, with the business, how has your journey been since
Mhm.
starting? And obviously, you've started post baby, was that right? You started coaching prior to leaving your
Yes, that's right.
corporate, but didn't start your business until after. Am I right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I started my training during corporate and then I switched to a different coaching provider, a coach training provider after I'd had my little boy. Yeah. So I've been trained through two different academies in different ways. And yeah, I had my boy and then started my business when he was 3. He's 6 now. So I think thinking back to that time, I kept telling myself that I had this, the mind monkeys and the gremlins saying to me, who are you to start a business? You can't do this. You're used to being told what to do by the bosses or whatever. And I think at the time, I really thought I was starting from like zero on the ladder. I started from the ground. And it's only as time's gone by and I've looked back that I've realized actually, I don't think any of us ever starts from zero. Like we all come into this with our own experiences and our own learnings. And I look back now and, before I was the director in my last job, I had lots of different jobs, in different environments before that. And I remember being like a secretary and a PA to various different companies. And I look back now and I think I've sat in so many pivotal moments within like decision making within businesses. I've been a witness. I've probably been like basically invisible to like the discussion that's been going on around, but I've been there and I've been learning and listening and taking these things in. And I've been a party to all sorts of, well, I've had discussions with so many like senior leaders with never thinking I would start my own business. And it's only as time's gone by that I've had to make different decisions myself that I've thought, actually, I couldn't have made that decision so easily had I not been previously in that meeting and witnessed how that went or learned from a mistake that somebody else had made. And so, as well as my own personal journey in ways of decluttering and finding my identity and improving my well-being and finding new skills, like that was all personal. But on a work front, you wouldn't think that a director in a tech company would have anything to do with, declutter coaching. Like it doesn't seem to have any sort of crossover, but it's only as time's gone by that I've realized actually that point really has held me in good stead. Or that's provided a really good foundation. And all that conversation with that person, their advice still sticks with me. And you sort of look back and realize, actually, I'm not starting at zero at all. I'm actually starting at, I don't know, 25. So I think anybody who's sort of doubting their ability or doubting whether they can do this or thinking, who am I to, I don't know, start a business or level up? I just think if you're really honest with yourself and you think on a wider scale beyond just the role in the business and not what value you want to deliver to your clients, but like bigger than that in your whole life, you are so much more prepared and probably skilled than you even realize.
Yes. This is like, honestly, something I bang on about all the time is that women, especially, do not credit themselves for everything that they have done, everything they've been through. Like you say, we've all come from experiences, so many experiences with so many transferable skills. If you take a step back for a moment and go, yeah, wait a minute, actually, I've done this before, not in the same context, but so much of businesses, I think one of the greatest gifts my parents ever gave me was the mindset of no matter what job you're doing, do the best you can, learn everything you can from that situation and treat it with respect. Like treat, don't show up and give it like 5%. And my parents instilled this like mindset and work ethic in me and my brother and my sister actually. But what happened was that we all went into every waitress job, every bar job, every housekeeping role, I was in HR as well. I was in a legal office for a long time, but I went into every job I've ever had. I went in with the mindset of I'm going to learn as much as I possibly can and give it 100%, no matter if I hate it, don't want to be here forever, if it's only for a month. I'm going to show up and give it 100%. And that, I think if you can show up in life, not just in, paid positions or whatever, but if you can show up in life in any given situation and say, I'm just going to give it 100% and learn everything I can learn from this situation, it prepares you no end, because that's basically what business is. It's people skills, the ability to pivot, because we all need to like learn how to just be like, okay, that didn't work. Let's just pick myself up and do it again. And to that resilience of like keep going. How do I look after myself better? How do I make sure that I'm in the best, emotional, physical, mental health that I can be in order to juggle all the things? Because I don't think there's anybody in this world that would say they've got too much time on their hands, right? Like we're all busy. Yeah, whether we're a mum or not,
No.
or whatever your position is, we're all busy. We've all got different priorities, but I think the secret is learning how to be the best version of yourself in whatever way that means, so that you can handle everything you need to handle and juggle all the balls, right?
Definitely. Yeah. I think if you're being the best that you can be, there's a certain pride and confidence there as well. Like you know that you are doing your best or that you will do your best and you may succeed, you may learn from it. But it's a growth I think
100%.
it's the whole growth mindset, isn't it, really? It's what it comes down to. Being open to new ideas, new approaches, and trying new things. Yeah. They say, what's the saying? Ready is not a time, it's a decision. Love that. That's
100%.
so true.
I think so many of us actually, a lot of the clients, especially that I speak to, it is that process. You touched on this earlier of trusting yourself. And I think when you're struggling to make decisions, sometimes it can be that lack of self-trust that you were kind of touching on earlier around, if I throw this away, is that the wrong decision? And not being able to fully just sit with yourself and say, this is the right decision for me, and trust whatever decision that you're making and just go for it with conviction. And I think once you can do that, so much of life becomes much easier, including business and including decluttering.
Yeah, exactly. You're so right. I think, yeah, like I said, people sometimes are sort of frozen in fear about making the wrong decision. But, when I'm working with clients, we often start with a much simpler category, and we build up what we call our decision-making muscles. So, we start with something that's easy and simple, and then, it could be, I don't know, putting out the recycling to begin with, but we would never dive straight into sorting out like your cherished memorabilia and going through like something that's really emotional. So it takes that journey, but the reason we do that is because you want to build up your trust in your own decisions. You want to have time in between to reflect and think, actually, I haven't missed anything from what I decluttered, because I trusted, I've trusted my intuition and my gut feeling, and I know that I've made the right decision. And then you can build up to the more tricky categories. So yeah, there's a method. There's a reason behind the method, I
Girl,
should say.
we're all here talking about transferable things, and I think that is exactly what I speak to my clients a lot about, right? When they're doing other things, whether that's business, whether it's just a piece of content, whatever, start small. Like sometimes I think we get caught up in the
Yeah.
enormity of everything that we forget that actually it's tiny little steps that get us there. And if you can build that decision-making muscle, as you've called it, with tiny little things and build that self-trust, oh my
Mm.
goodness, your world, like you say, your world transforms and you suddenly find yourself in this new identity where you're a declutter queen and, everything else is super easy because you trust your
Yeah.
intuition, you trust your decisions. So I love that. Thank you so much.
I think we all want to have this like click and, before and after, click and it's transformed. But nothing really happens like that. That's all staged and it takes time. And yeah, I absolutely agree with you, because I'm always banging on to my followers about, it's to make any progress, it's all small baby consistent steps. That's the only way that you learn. And also it's learning new habits at the same time, and habit stacking is a separate thing that we also look at. But yeah, it all feeds into a longer journey to success, but then making it more sustainable and easier to manage when you get there.
100%.
That makes sense.
100%. I couldn't agree more. And I blame socials for that sometimes as well. Like that whole click your fingers, make 10K, click your fingers, have a pristine home, click your fingers and you're going to have everything you want and be the person that you want to be overnight. And it's just really not what happens. And I think you actually learn the lessons through the journey. And that's the part I think sometimes maybe people aren't ready
Definitely.
for, like you say, like facing those hard truths, facing those things in life that you're at the moment, you're just being like, it's cool, I'm getting on with it, and just pretend it's not there. When in actual fact, that eventually you're going to have to make that decision. Eventually you're going to have to make that change. But through that journey is where we learn so much of what's actually going to be the thing that carries us forward.
Yeah, definitely.
I love it.
100%.
And for us mums who are not declutter queens yet, what do you think are some of the systems that you use that really help you? Like, do you have a laundry hack? That's what I'm just here for selfish reasons. I just want you to tell me how to help with my laundry.
Well, do you know what? We only have 3 people in our household and a dog, so I guess there's dog bedding. But the only way I manage to stay on top of our laundry is literally by doing something towards it every single day. And it's really unsexy, really boring. And I'd love to say, this is the magic wand, and wave it and the washing will disappear from the laundry basket. But it doesn't happen that way. So I'm feeling the pain with all other families. But what I would say is the less you bring into your home, the less you have to manage. And that's the same with laundry. It's the same with food going out of date. It's the same with any toys, anything. The less you have coming in, the less you have to manage and stay on top of. So I'm not saying everyone needs to be minimalists and have very, very little in their house and all live in like, pristine white environments where nothing's allowed in. This isn't reality. Well, not my reality anyway, or many of my clients. But, if we overbuy clothing or, we can't find what we need in our wardrobe because it's so stuffed, then we're probably only wearing like 10%, 20% of the wardrobe anyway. And so, you may end up like grabbing something else you don't really want to wear, but your laundry basket is filled up because you've not had a chance to get to the bottom of it. So you're sort of creating more laundry. Whereas if you have like you capsule your wardrobe and you're able to stay on top of a certain amount of laundry and get your process and your system and your rhythm throughout the week sort of sorted, then you can maintain it that way. But I think it comes down to reducing how much you have volume wise in the house to have to stay on top of it. Now, obviously, people with lots of children and much busier households than mine are going to have, I totally get that everyone's circumstances are different, but there are systems that you can have set up. You can make sure you've only got, well, it depends on how many people are in your household, but you might want to have a laundry basket for each child, or you might want to have a laundry basket on each level of your house if you're in, depends. I think what it comes down to is, where do people take off their clothes? If they come in the front door and then they just strip off, have a laundry basket on the ground floor or in your front door or whatever. If they, yeah,
No, I
anyway,
hear
I'm
you.
going off
It's
on
so
a
helpful.
tangent,
I think
but
it's the thing is though, right? It's that issue that everyone talks about, and it is not sexy. It's not sexy, right? But I swear,
it's
so
not.
many of my clients, all my business besties, all the women I engage with, everyone has issues keeping on top of the laundry. It's not a unique problem to have, but it's a real problem, right? Like, it's a real thing. Like trying to keep on top of it all and trying to prioritize building a business or a job and being a mama and trying to deliver all the things you want to deliver for the babies, as well as actually it's a full-time bloody job keeping a house and doing laundry. So it's actually something that is brought up a lot in conversation. So I knew I had to ask you that question, but I love the idea of having like some systems and like taking a minute to check in with how your family works and how your home works, and then making some intentional choices about that. Like, that's such helpful advice. Like, genuinely, I feel like I go through phases of managing it, and then I go through phases of completely ignoring it. But you'll be very proud of me, I have reduced my wardrobe and I've sold a lot on Vinted. That's been my kind of my recent decluttering journey. And I do feel like that's really helped because it's much less overwhelming. It is much, and same with the kids. Like, I try not to buy
Yeah.
them too much of the same size so that it's not chaos trying to get stuff into drawers and then laundry just getting thrown here, there, and there, and then you don't know what's clean and you don't know what's dirty. And my house is relatively tidy considering I have 3 kids, but it is a lot to keep on top of it. And I think if you've got the systems, you're right, it makes it so much easier and you kind of know where you stand.
Yeah. I think every household needs to be taken on its own sort of unique values and how it works and everything. So, this is where the whole comparing yourself or your home to anything online is just a really bad idea, because that's where you get all the shoulds. You should do this, you should do that. Well, it doesn't work for everybody. So, like, you should keep your makeup in your bedroom or the bathroom or whatever. Well, maybe you do your makeup in the kitchen in the morning while you're making your cup of tea. So keep your makeup in the kitchen. That's okay. Like, maybe, you see all these beautifully folded children's drawers. Well, if your children literally go in and go, like, to find what they want to wear, don't waste your time folding it all perfectly. Like, unless you absolutely love doing that, obviously, then knock yourself out. But generally, if it's easier for the kids to help you put things away by literally throwing their pants and socks into a drawer and not worrying about pairing them up or folding it beautifully, then if that makes it easier for them to learn and for them to help you, then go for it. I just think there doesn't need to be so many shoulds. I think it's a case of what works for our family, what works in our household, and what can make life that little bit simpler, that little bit easier. Don't worry about the shoulds.
Love that, Becky. That's such an empowering statement, though. Like, do what works for you. And I remember having a client, like,
Yeah.
really early days for me, and she was so overwhelmed with the house, right? Like, keeping the house, doing the laundry, keeping everything really clean and tidy. And it came down to the fact that her mum kept her house like that. But my client was so overwhelmed and she was working full time as well. She was trying to improve her health by going to the gym and couldn't find the time. And I was like, okay, well, how would it feel to just let go of some of these expectations around the house? Like, she was doing the most, let me tell you. I was like, how would it feel to just let go of some of those expectations? And it changed so much for her. And it was such a simple thing, but like you say, it comes down to the mindset and belief behind that. And I think for a lot of women, the expectation and belief is if I have a home that doesn't look perfect, it means I'm lazy. It means I'm not a good mum. It means I'm not a good wife. I mean, and it seems to have this kind of stereotype around it, like for women around having to have that perfect home and keeping it all together all of the time. When in actual fact, you're sacrificing time with the kids. You're sacrificing time on you. Like, I would
Yeah.
rather chuck my kids' pants and socks all in a drawer and have it messy and spend my time in a bubble bath than iron it all and fold it all. Like, that's not where my values are. And it's fine if yours are,
Yeah,
but there are so
definitely.
many other things to do with your time, right? That
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I know that um in my world, I'm surrounded by lots of people who do want things to be picture perfect. And
yeah, of
I'm as
course.
guilty as anyone of like scrolling through these beautiful images of like, just, I don't know, a lovely curated shelf or, the books in color order. Or I love all that. That totally like, that's my escapism. But that's not what I promote with my clients because most of my clients are overwhelmed. They don't need any more pressure put on themselves. In actual fact, I need to go in and ease that pressure and make things simpler, easier to maintain, make it work for them, make it, flexible. And I definitely, some people love or hate this, but I definitely don't promote buying more and more storage solutions and more plastic. And I think personally that there's enough plastic in the world without me putting out Amazon affiliate links. That's just something that I personally feel quite strongly about. And I think we can organize our homes with things we already have. There may be something you might want to buy, but I definitely don't think that going out and buying more stuff is the solution. The solution is to get rid of the stuff you don't need anymore. Don't just organize it. So that's my that's my flag in the sand. But I want a bit of
No, I love that.
a
I
soapbox about
I
that.
love that though. You're so right. Like it's almost like creating more problems with like it's the consumption, isn't it? Like there's an overconsumption. We all overconsume. We're all
Yes.
guilty of it. But you're right. We don't need more and more and more. It's almost like making
Yeah.
compounding the problem when actually you're right. So many of us just have stuff. It's just stuff for the sake of stuff rather than stuff for the sake of intention and joy and practicality and
Yes.
usefulness. Because not everything has to be useful, right? Like you can have stuff in your home that's just for yeah, that you love
That you
and
just
that's
like.
for decor or whatever. Exactly.
It just makes you smile. It could be something completely daft, but if it makes you smile
Go
and it
for it.
makes you happy,
Go
then
for it.
keep it. Have it on
Totally.
display. It doesn't
Totally.
matter.
But just make sure it does actually do those
I,
things, right?
I think yes, yes. I think obligation is another reason a lot of people keep things as well, though, because they might be given gifts that they don't feel that they particularly want or love, but feel like they can pass it on. Or what if mother-in-law comes around and asks where the vase is? Those sorts of scenarios. Or or maybe they've inherited belongings and they just think it's been in the family for generations. I don't like it. I don't want to look at it. But actually, what I feel like I need to keep it,
You've
and
got
then
this.
suddenly
Do you ever
home's
see,
filling up.
like, I see it all the time, and it's really funny because it happened to my family. You know, when someone says they like something, like for me, that's giraffes. So for me, everyone in my family, if someone sees it like a giraffe themed something, I have it for the next birthday or Christmas. I'm not complaining, right? Because I love it. And my family are great at gifts, and I'll have a lot of giraffe decor, right? But I'm here for it, right? Actually, I do like it. But I do see often like
Yeah.
people being like, this one time I said I liked an elephant, and now I've got like nothing but elephants in my home because people buy coasters, they buy ornaments, all this other stuff, like you're saying, just this stuff. And it's constant. And then you're like, I only liked that one elephant that one time, and now now my life is elephant.
I've seen that happen so often with clients who have collections of things. My mum had a collection of shoes, and that happened with her. Like, it wasn't shoes you wear, it was like ornamental shoes. And I think she liked one once and ended up with about 30 of them. Yeah, it does happen. I think it's something interesting you said, though, around the consumption, though. I think a lot of what we bring into our homes is because we think that we're not enough without it. Like maybe if I have this, I don't know, beautifully curated kitchen, then I'll feel enough. Or maybe if I have these extra shoes, I'll feel nicer, but also I'll feel enough. Or, it could be anything. And I think there's a lot, all the marketing is just aimed at making us more than we feel we are now. And it's a massive marketing machine, isn't it? So we all think that's my quick fix. If I get this, or it'll get dopamine
Do
hits,
you know what's
isn't it,
come to
really, as
mind there
well?
as well is the plethora of expensive cleaning products. I feel like there's such a huge market for, especially home scents. And I'm not someone who uses artificial fragrance in my house. I don't like it. It makes me like not feel good. So I don't buy anything that's particularly fragranced in terms of cleaning products. But I was in B&M, as you do. Like if you're British, you go to B&M, and there's like a whole cleaning aisle. There's a whole cleaning aisle with so many different options of very expensive cleaning products. And I'm like, it's almost, again, though, comes down to that. If you use this cleaning product, it will make you feel better about yourself and your home. Where in actual fact, it's the same as the cheaper one. It's just got Mrs. Hinch's face on
Yeah.
it. And I'm no
Yeah.
hate to Mrs. Hinch. Girl, you sell your cleaning products. You're an entrepreneur and
No.
we love you. However, there just seems to be, again, it comes down to that, like, there's just an overconsumption of these things that really it's not making that much of a difference, but somehow the marketing's convinced us that we need all these fancy things in order for us to feel like our home is good enough.
Yeah. There's a lot of aspirational buying, I think. And there's a lot of aspirational clutter that really, sorry, I'm just, my mind went off to a client then, and I was just thinking, I can't go into any detail. That's what that pause was. There's a lot of aspirational clutter, I think, in terms of people. One day I'm going to fit into that. One day I'm going to finish that project. One day I'm going to, I don't know, I'm going to create this, or I'm going to start baking cakes, or there's so much. And there's nothing wrong with that, because if that's a dream, or if that's a goal or a hobby, that's something that you'd like to return to, or none of
No, of
this is
course,
meant in
no.
any judgmental way. But what I mean is, I think it goes back to that whole assessing where you are now in life and where you want to go in the future. Because you may have been that, I mean, I can say this with my ADHD hats on, that I have a lot of projects I start and I don't finish, or I buy all the gear with my latest hobby and then I'm bored of it really quickly and I've got all the gear. So I'm talking from personal experience as well, as it's not meant in any judgmental way, but it's so easy for us to aspire to certain things, and then time goes by, or our tastes change, or our lifestyles change, or our responsibilities and priorities change. And if we don't go back
Yes.
and reassess these things from the past, then they just remain there. And actually they can be happy memories. That's fine, keep them. But if it's things that make you feel less than in any way, whether it's, I'm not talented enough to have learned that, or to finish that project, or to, I don't know, write my book, or anything that sort of reminds you of what feels like you haven't quite got there, and you know deep down you probably won't. It's really cathartic to kind of draw a line under it and say, okay, this isn't me anymore. I tried it, it didn't work. Or you may decide I'm definitely going to do it, but make a commitment. I think it's that one day I might go back to this. It
Yeah,
keeps
it
us bogged
does.
down.
I love that because again, it comes back to what we were speaking about earlier, like that self-trust and that decision making, and just make a decision. Just make the decision for yourself.
Yeah.
Like again, no, there's no judgment here. Like I love this conversation because I feel like hopefully it will really help women really shift their mindset in terms of other things they can let go of. Like you can let go of whatever you want to let go of in your life, whether that's an identity, whether that's a corporate job, whether it's how you feel about a project that you started and didn't finish. Let it go. The only person beating yourself, really?
Relationships.
Absolutely. You can let it go and it doesn't mean anything
Yeah.
about you other than you've let something go. It doesn't suit you anymore. Who cares? Let there be
Yeah.
space for what you really want next.
Yes. Yes. Let that energy shift. And then, I really do think you let something go, it will always be replaced with something, but it's that intentionality. What do you want it to be
Yes.
replaced with?
And 9 times out of 10, it's something better. In fact, I'm going to say 10 times out of 10, it's always something better
Oh, yeah.
once you make that decision. Oh, I love that. Becky, thank you so much. It's been such an interesting conversation. And I really have just enjoyed
You're
hearing from your
welcome.
perspective the journey that you've been on as well in terms of how you got into decluttering. I think it's such a unique but interesting area and I'm so glad to have had you on. Is there anything else you'd like to add to this conversation? that I maybe have missed or should have asked?
No, I don't think so. I think just thank you for having me on here. And it's been really enjoyable. So just word salad at you, really. I just feel like I want to talk about everything. And yeah, keeping me on track's a bit tricky. But no, thank you so
And
much. I really
honestly,
enjoyed it.
we're here. We're here for the great conversation. Like, I don't think I think I'm probably too ADHD to have a like a structured. Oh, that would drive me nuts. So no, we're here for it. Thank you so much for spending your time with us and for sharing everything. And I know that our listeners will have their mind blown open as to what they can let go of, not maybe just even in their physical space, but maybe in their energy and their mental space as well. So thank you so much for being here.
You're so welcome. Oh, and feel free to follow me on at
Well
White
remembered,
Space
Becky.
Declutter Coach on Insta
Yes, go
and
follow
Facebook.
Becky, and I will link her details down below as well.